You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, this is Paul Stefan, and this is another episode of our show, Maryland Politics. Today, our guest is Jenica Martin, who is running as the Libertarian candidate for the House of Representatives in Congress, District 1. Welcome, Jenica.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
You're very welcome. And I'm honored because this is your first interview.
Thank you.
So what we want to know first, so people will know you, is tell us a little bit about your background and how you think that will help you in the political arena.
I have always been an advocate. I've always been an advocate for individuals who don't have the resources to help themselves. While in college, I worked with the Department of Persons with Disabilities, and I helped cognitively disabled adults acquire the skills they needed to live independently. Following that, I fought for workers' rights. I actually battled a $31 billion multinational company for stolen wages for employees in New York City. And I don't second guess the decisions that I make because it's the right thing to do. And I am an individual who has experienced a lot of obstacles in my life, and I've had others help me to overcome those obstacles. And it has instilled something inside of me to say, you know, that's what's right. That's the right thing to do for people. People need to help others. So following that, I then became a volunteer for the National CASA Association, where I work with foster children that are considered children in need, and I just establish relationships with them. I advocate for what's in their best interests. So to kind of shrink it all into one arena is I'm an advocate. As far as running for Congress, I can tell you it is a blessing to have this opportunity. It truly is. It wasn't something that I thought about years ago and I said, you know what, I'm going to run for Congress and I'm going to go into the federal government and I'm going to make changes. I always just wanted to stay in the foreground, you know, just helping people. I didn't need any kind of recognition because I had my own recognition within myself to know that I'm doing something good for others. But then the opportunity arose. And I said to myself, God put this in my hands. He's telling me that I need to take what I feel and what I believe, and I need to take it to a level much higher than I can ever imagine. So here I am.
Good. Well, I was going to say, though, a lot of offices you could have went for the first time out, but why was it Congress?
I was nominated by the Libertarian Party.
Oh, okay.
The chairman, Maryland's chairman, called me. He asked me, let me back up a little bit. Originally, I said to myself, because I am from Cecil County, I said, I'm going to run for Cecil County Council. It's a lot, and we'll get into the reasons, I'm sure, but there's a lot of things that I think Cecil County needs to change. So I contacted the Libertarian Party and I told them that I believe in their principles, I follow what they stand for, and I'm interested in running for county council. However, career-wise, I had changed my mind. And this is because I was acquiring an opportunity to advance in my career. So I had to make a decision where my career might not leave me in Cecil County for the 4 years that's required as a county councilwoman. So I kind of put it to the to the background.
Right.
But then I got a call from the chairman. He said, we want you to run for Congress and represent the Libertarian Party. And I said, I was taken back. It was quite a humbling moment because political parties don't randomly call an individual and ask them, run and represent us. You typically have to look for their...
they looked for you.
Yeah, exactly.
How they found you
and I had already established a relationship with Bob. We had talked, and there was a understanding of what I believed in and how it did reflect libertarian principles. So a day, 24 hours later, I decided there's a reason for this. I could have went in a direction focusing on my career, moving out of the state, plethora of experiences that I could endure, but this was placed in my lap. And I had a decision to make because it was placed in my lap for a reason. And that decision was either to truly act on what I believe when it comes to advocating and helping those that don't have the resources, or being selfish and moving on with what I want to do. And I took to what I believe is the right road. And I decided that I'm going to advocate for those that don't have the resources. So here I am, doing just that.
And but I would say then, and as a follow-up is, but why as a Libertarian? Were you already a member of the Libertarian Party?
I have been an independent voter. And the reason why I've been an independent voter is because there are certain policy issues that both the Democrat and Republican parties and their leaders in office choose to implement that I agree with. But then there are a lot that I don't. The Libertarians have a strong platform for what I believe in. Sovereignty over your life. I don't want the government in my house, and I don't think any other citizen of the United States should have the federal government regulating or restricting the decisions that they make when it comes to how they want to live their lives. I believe in a free market. I believe that regulations and restrictions as they come regarding our market and our economy are out of control significantly. I also agree with collective bargaining. One of the strong stances as far as libertarians are concerned are for employees and employers to collectively bargain, whether it's for wages, whether it's for benefits, incentives. What they choose is what they have the right to choose, and the federal government has no right to intervene in those choices. Limited government. I think there are way too many departments. I could go, the list is entirely too long. And the federal government needs to be limited. And I think that would also correlate to the spending. If we decrease the departments that are within the federal government, if we decrease the amount of intervention that the federal government implements on American citizens, it will decrease the spending that's necessary, for that.
I would agree with you there. Let me just jump in quickly, because something I saw in the news this morning talking about the Defense Department said they are going to spend like crazy because for once they have a surplus of money, so we have to spend it or probably lose it, so they're probably going to be buying more $1,000 toilet seats or something.
Okay, first of all, any excess, if they call it that, of funding should be allocated to the veterans of the United States of America. We have far too many veterans on our streets today. The Veterans Health Administration, while it does offer sometimes better than the private sector healthcare, no veteran should wait 120 days to see a physician through the Veterans Health Administration. It is a government-ran program, and it needs to be handed over to the veterans, let them choose their own management, have them decide on the facilities that they want in place for the members, and it can be based on rank, how long you've been in service. There definitely be stipulations and ideas that can be put in place to make sure that it is managed adequately. But it should be privatized. And I think that, and that's another thing as far as I feel about healthcare, is that privatization works. Let me give you an example. When I was in school, undergrad school in New Jersey, I had to insure my car. Now, New Jersey's car insurance can be quite pricey. Okay. One of my employers was a member of New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group. I called them up, got car insurance. Number one, it was the cheapest car insurance in that state that I could find. And number two, at the end of each year, it's a private insurance company. at the end of each year, it sent checks to its policyholders based on a surplus of dividends. You don't get that with, and we're not talking about safe driving bonus checks. We're talking about giving a piece of the company back to the policyholders through privatization. These are some of the incentives that you privatize and you get them. If you have government regulations, have government restrictions and increase those, then companies can't give those type of incentives. I mean, individuals speak of the $1,000 incentive that they got after the tax cut. But here's an idea. Say you get a raise. Because of the tax cut, everyone gets a raise. You're at a specific tax bracket prior to that raise. You get the raise, now you're increased to a higher tax bracket. Well, now you're getting more taxes taken out of your check. But wait, because I'm in a higher tax bracket, I'm getting a higher percentage taken out of my check. So where's the incentive for what I just received from the company? And that's just based on government intervention. It needs to stop. So that's.
I can see it. You're starting to get into the issues. You're jumping ahead of me a little bit. But, because you're giving a little bit of an idea, but I'll put it in a question to educate people, because we said a little off camera. A lot of people are just unaware even that the Libertarian Party is out there. So to let folks know, then, what is the Libertarian Party about? I mean, I don't know that much either, but I would say it could go all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, where it says everybody is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
And I would think, and correct me here because you're teaching me too, that the party is probably mostly about each citizen, each voter, having personal choice or more control over his or her life as opposed to government control.
That is correct.
Okay.
The Libertarian Party is more on the majority side. They are about having sovereignty over your life, not having government interference when you make those decisions. And it can be anywhere from, like I said earlier, collective bargaining between employees and employers to foreign aid. And foreign aid, decreasing military interference in sovereign nations internationally. There are currently 700 United States bases in over 80 sovereign nations. Now, sovereign, you have, when you speak of sovereignty, you speak of having the right to reign over, your dominion, whether it's yourself, whether it's the country. Why are we there? That's the question asked. So these are some of the stances that the Libertarian Party believes in. It's more about the freedom to make the choice, limited government to where that government protects those freedoms. That's all we ask. We're not anarchists, which may be a popular belief. We do believe in some government, but that government is meant to protect our rights to make our own choices, not implement regulations and restrictions that hinder the rights to make our own choices. And I think that we get drowned out by the two major parties, which, if you follow social media, if you're watching the news media on TV, it's very easy to get drowned out. And a lot of people don't realize that their liberties are being taken away on a daily basis. So I think the one thing that they can remember about the Libertarian Party is that we stand for your freedoms, with no compromise. Yeah, I think that that's the strongest stance that an individual should know with regards. We stand for you to have the freedom to make your own choices.
Well, that's good. I mean, we, of course, I said at the top of the show, we're happy to have you here and be your first interview, but I think it may also be indicative of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. A lot of mainstream media will not have a libertarian candidate on their shows or even think about including them maybe in a candidate forum, and so that's part of why we're here, to give the voice to those who aren't heard.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Because we talked about, even on our third stream last night, that over 90% of media is owned by just a handful of companies.
Yes.
And so it controls the message to the American people.
Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure that the other alternative messages like yours gets out there.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, it's an uphill battle for you running in District 1. You have an incumbent who's in his fourth term, is that right?
Yes.
Andy Harris. You don't know, you said, who the Democratic candidate will be yet. But so first, you're not Andy Harris, and you're a libertarian, and you're an African-American woman who has no political experience. So why should people vote for you?
If individuals are as tired as I am with the status quo that we have been dealing with for decades, then they need to really examine their choices. The reason why, and I don't want to jump ahead of you, but the reason why I have specific issues that I'm running for is because they affect me personally. Opioid crisis. I currently have someone near and dear to my heart whose body is deteriorating because of prescribed opioids. She suffers from degenerative disc disorder throughout her neck and spine. I have witnessed her in pain for the past 2 decades. And what alleviates that pain are the prescription medications that she takes. Now, she's been through 6 surgeries. None of them have worked enough for 100% recovery. And it's a vicious cycle because if the surgeries don't alleviate the pain completely, she's prescribed opioids. But the opioids also have a significant side effect that deteriorates what she needs to function. Additionally, I have witnessed the town that I live in suffer extreme social problems because of opioid abuse. What I believe should happen, hold those that create the product, distribute the product accountable. I fully believe in a free market society, but I also believe that in that free market, if you are a producer or seller of a product, you need to be held responsible for any consequences that come from that product. Do I say stop prescribing opioids? If they help, no, you don't have to stop. But you need to also offer cessation resources. You need to offer more education to patients with regards to how these prescribed drugs are going to affect you. For example, no, I won't say an example. The incumbent,
Dr. Harris, he made a statement during a congressional debate over marijuana being used as an experimental prescribed drug for pain medication. And I'm paraphrasing here, but his statement included the fact that marijuana is a gateway drug. Listen, I have never had an individual who smokes, eats, or however they, choose to digest marijuana tell me that it's made them want to go try coke, crack, or heroin. However, prescribed opioids are a gateway drug because once those prescriptions stops, that individual now needs to find another way to get the opioid. What do they go to? Heroin, fentanyl. Maryland alone in 2017, half of 2017, because these statistics were retrieved in June, over 1,000 opioid-related deaths. I don't have the statistics on the marijuana-related deaths, but okay.
And you can hold me to this, I'm sure it wasn't as much as the opioid-related deaths.
Okay.
But yes, it's hitting home, and I think pharmaceutical companies need to be held responsible for the products that they are placing into our society. It's not taxpayers' responsibilities to pay for a remedy for the epidemic that we're experiencing, because taxpayers didn't put the drug on the market. Taxpayers did not produce the drug. They didn't come up with, painkillers derived of opium to help patients. Pharmaceutical companies did. Hold them hold them accountable.
Okay. But you also say possibly in some ways physicians should be held responsible, because
Absolutely.
sometimes there's been word out there that there's an overprescription of opioids without giving the patient an alternative.
Absolutely. In the physician's defense, when opioids became a huge hit in the medical field, there wasn't a lot of information provided to the physicians. They were given certain kickbacks, but they weren't provided with the long-term effects. Times have changed. They are now provided with that information. But yes, I do think that they should also be held accountable, because they're distributing and administering these drugs. And like I said, I'm not anti-opioid prescriptions, but you need to have responsibility for the drugs that you are putting out to the public. And responsibility means making sure you're educating them. And if you know it's a heavily addictive drug, make sure you have a way for those patients to say, okay, I'm done. It's time for me to start my cessation. So that's definitely something that I hold strongly in my heart. And that's not something that I don't think I can drop when it comes to policy implementation.
Okay, there's a comment and a question about it, is to say that, to me, of course, is that it's a whole different picture of drug user. Mm-hmm. That this is not something, their whole life, you hear so many stories, they're just average people, everyday folks, and then some kind of injury or broken collarbone or whatever it would be, they get these opioids, and then they become addicts. And they'd never been before, and then eventually, in time, like you say, they get hooked and they are dependent on it, and then they're like the rest of the addicts. Because I have a woman who helps us out. She was here a few nights ago, and she's a dental hygienist, and she said, this opioid crisis and heroin, she said, it's terrible that these people, they lose their teeth and everything. I mean, it's the heroin users. And I said, we're seeing that as a result of the opioid crisis. These are people who will need implants or false teeth or whatever, and they can't afford it. So that's just another side part of this.
Yes.
And then the other part of it, this would be the question, because you talked about Dr. Harris and marijuana. Mm-hmm. Are you a person who is in favor of or even advocates these medical marijuana clinics that are sprouting out all around Maryland?
I am absolutely an advocate of implementing different avenues for individuals to help themselves feel better. Legally.
Okay. Yes, okay. Well, those clinics are legal, right?
Exactly. And they are. And I am a huge advocate of them, because I cannot see the correlation to you stating that marijuana is bad, or it's not going to help an individual, but at the same time you're telling me that, opioids are definitely okay to keep, it's okay to just keep pushing them when they have more adverse effects than the marijuana does. So I am fully supportive of marijuana clinics if they are going to give patients another option to to help their pain management. Absolutely.
When you talk about maybe even the pharmaceutical companies, which you can get into more detail or broader, that are being responsible for this, do you feel that there ought to be somewhere where financially that pharmaceutical companies should have a fund or pay for the victims of the opioid crisis?
Absolutely. And that's where, when I stated that it shouldn't come from taxpayers, it needs to come from the producers and distributors of that product. And that's the pharmaceutical companies. I absolutely believe that they are the ones that should be paying for the epidemic that they caused.
Unfortunately, we're just about out of time.
Oh, dear.
So, we could always have you back. You're running all the way through to November. So what I want you to be able to leave with our audience, maybe a final statement of summing up, why they should vote for you or what you believe in.
As a candidate for Congress, I believe in your freedom to make the choices in your lives without government interference. I believe that you have a right to make those choices, whether it be healthcare, whether it be employment, whether it be how you want your children's education to be managed. Every aspect of every Maryland citizen's life American citizen's life, should be held in your own hands. We need to limit our government. We need to diminish the non-essential departments that it continuously institutes to hold on to control. And we need to start making choices in a stance to ensure that our rights and our freedoms decrease and when it comes to being hindered. If you vote for me, Jenica Martin, for Congress, I will fight to limit government, and I will fight to ensure that government follow its true job, and that's protecting your rights as a citizen. That's it. Thank you.
And if you could, though, tell people how to contact you, and also how to contribute to your campaign.
I can be contacted at Jenica Martin at martinforcongress.us. And if you would like to contribute, you can so. I do have a page on CrowdPack. You can also donate on my Facebook page at Martin for Congress, or you can send it to 503 Buttonwoods Road, Elkton, Maryland, 21921. And you can address it to Martin for Congress.
Well, again, it's been great talking to you today, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for stopping by our studio.
Thank you, and it's been an honor. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And so, folks, we're at the end of another episode of Maryland Politics, and you were just listening for the last half hour or so to Jenica Martin, Libertarian candidate for District 1 for the United States Congress. So until next time, we'll see you around.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.